Welcome to Midnight Mule FPL. I'm Midnight Mule and this is the video for Game Week 15 for the 5% series, where we look at a small number of players, and if you only choose from these players and bias towards the ones that I say are the ones worth having, I think you've got a reasonably good chance of finishing in the top 5% globally, which means you'll do alright in your mini league. You're not going to win the whole competition, but you'll hopefully get a respectable finish. Now, Game Week 14 is not finished yet, but I have to do the video today, otherwise I'm just not going to have time, and you may not have time to make changes if you want to make changes. So we'll start by looking at the scores so far in Game Week 14, starting with the keepers. Henderson 7, Raya 6, and then the less important keepers, Pickford 6, and that's all. Regarding the defenders, the more important defenders, we have Trent on 6, Gvardiol 6, and then the slightly less important defenders, Saliba 15, Mikalenko 11, and then the least important defenders, they all got nothing. Regarding the midfielders, Salah 18, Rodgers 8, Palmer 7. The less important midfielders, Gordon 8, and the really not important midfielders, McNeil 9. Regarding the forwards, Watkins 12, Isak 11, Haaland 5, and then the less important forwards, we have Vardy 4, and that's also good old Vardy, he likes to score. So we'll start by looking at the keepers, and as we look at each of the positions, the first player that I show you is the player I think's got the potential to hurt you the most, the realistic potential to hurt you the most if you don't have them. So one way to play FPL, which is the way we're doing it in this system, is trying to pick the players that are likely to hurt you if you don't have them, and then you're not going to get the pain. So currently Raya is the keeper most likely to hurt you if you don't have him. The next four fixtures, Fulham, Everton, Palace, Ipswich, they're all very nice, but he is the most expensive player within the system, 5.5 million. Where it's worth investing in this game at the moment is in the midfield. But if after you've done all that and you're happy with the rest of your team, if you can afford 5.5 for Raya, he is quite good. But don't fret if you can't have him. You can just have a 4.5 million keeper and you'll get some points. Raya is not likely to ever get more than 6 points. He will occasionally, but generally he's going to get 2, 3, 4, 6 points. Fabianski is the next most important player. He's highly owned. Part of that is because he's so cheap and he's a playing keeper, that 4.1. He's the cheapest playing keeper. But there will be occasions like this week for Sanchez owners where he is going to come on and he is going to score the points. There will be a small number of players like me that only have Fabianski as their playing keeper. And that's because my second keeper is currently injured. And then after that, the keepers, apart from Raya at the moment, really don't matter too much. Which one you've got doesn't make a big difference regarding what happens to your rank. So Henderson at 4-4, but two of the next three are City and Arsenal, so he's not a good keeper to have. Sanchez got rested midweek. Hopefully it was a rest and he's not been dropped. And if it's a case of he's going to get rested for all midweek games, then he's also going to get rested for Fulham. So if you've got Sanchez, that's fine. He's hopefully going to be a good keeper. Chelsea have some nice fixtures, but currently I'd say it's probably not worth bringing him in if you can stretch to Raya, if you had to make a keeper change. And then Flecken, 4.5. If you can't stretch to Raya and you need to change your keeper, Sanchez is all right, but I don't know, so Flecken is all right. It's so hit and miss with keepers, it really is. And then for the less important keepers, we have Sales at Forest, Pickford. You do not want to get Pickford or probably any Everton players now, because in the next four games they've got Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City. And that's probably the most difficult run you can have. So there's a reasonably good chance he's going to get no clean sheets in the next four games. Martinez at 5 million. Probably not worth 5 million, but this coming game's very nice at home to Southampton. Then Ward represents any 4 million keeper that simply doesn't play. Regarding the defenders, Gabriel's the most important defender in as much as he's the one that's going to hurt you the most. Now, he didn't play last night because he's still a little bit injured apparently. If we knew he wasn't injured, he would absolutely be worth having. But I'm saying don't buy him because we don't know for sure he's going to play at the weekend. And it may be in the next few days we learn more so that he definitely is playing. If we find out he is playing, he's a good buy to get. If we find out he's not playing and he might be out for a while, then we're going to have to sell him because he's very expensive. But he is a good player. I'm suggesting you don't buy him unless the flag gets removed. So Pedro Porro, probably not worth buying, but he is actually popular and getting played by a lot of people at the moment. But 5.8, I think that money's probably better spent in midfield or else get a premium defender. So don't buy him, just making you aware he can hurt you if you don't have him. If you have Pedro Porro, he's fine to keep. Aiton Nori's very popular, but he's not been very good recently. I'd say not worth buying him, but if you've got him, the next 3 games, West Ham, Ipswich, Leicester, it's fine to keep him for those. Trent, he's up to the fourth most important defender now. 6.9 million. Upcoming fixtures generally are good. If we knew he was always starting and going to get 85, 90 minutes, he would be almost a must-have. But we can't be sure of his minutes. He is on his way back from an injury. So you don't have to buy him. But if he plays, he is a good, very good defender to have. A lot of managers will probably be bringing him in this week. And then Gvardiol, it's nice to see him play last night and finally get a clean sheet. 6.2 million. I'm not suggesting you buy him, but if you've got him, that's fine. If he does well, it will hurt your rank a bit if you don't have him. And then Virgil van Dijk, he's $500,000 cheaper than Trent, but his minutes are a lot more secure. If he's fit, he's playing 90 minutes. He will probably get the occasional header from a corner during the season, but apart from that, he's probably not really going to get an assist, or he doesn't have much attacking potential, whereas Trent does have a lot of attacking potential relative to Virgil van Dijk. So depending on your team, if you could afford either, if you had at least 3 other defenders which were quite good and definitely going to play, then Trent's probably worth the punt. But if you've got 2 bench fodder defenders, then you'd probably be better off going for Virgil van Dijk. Of course, you don't have to buy either. Any defenders I'm showing you now, if they do well, they're probably not really going to hurt your rank much, because at the moment, they're not especially highly owned. So Saliba is gaining in popularity. I wouldn't be surprised if his ownership increases over the next few weeks. Arsenal have a reasonable chance of clean sheets. He doesn't have much goal threat, but he did score last night. But he's probably not going to score many, to be fair. And then Aina, so he has been very good for Forest, but Forest have some difficult fixtures and a reasonably good chance of struggling to get clean sheets. So if you've got him, that's fine. 4.9, he should always play, but I wouldn't go buying him. Same with Robinson. 3 of the next 4 fixtures, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, very difficult. He does have Southampton in the mix. He is only 4.7 though. So unless you got loads of transfers available, I'd say it's probably not worth getting rid of him. But I wouldn't be buying him either, but he's all right to have. Mazraoui is all right, may get a clean sheet this week, home to Forest, then in 2 weeks' time at home to Bournemouth, away to Wolves. There's a chance of clean sheets there. But if you don't have him and he does well, he's not going to hurt your rank. Lewis massively dropped in popularity. He is a minute's risk. He came on for the last few minutes last night. So although Man City got a clean sheet, he only got 1 point. If you've got him, he's fine to move on, but he's also fine to keep. But I'd say he's not worth buying. The reason he's fine to keep is we're still learning what Man City are trying to do this season, apart from win games. It may be in 2 or 3 weeks' time. It looks like, yep, he's always going to play 90 minutes. And if Man City start keeping clean sheets, he's all right to have. And the cheapest defender you can get is 4 million. So you can only release 0.7 if you sold Lewis. But if you want to release the cash, that's okay. But unless you're releasing the cash, I'd say it's not worth selling Lewis. Konza's nice fixture this week at home to Southampton, but after that, nothing special. But he's very lowly owned, doesn't matter now. So Mykolenko did well last night. I think he got 11 points. But the Everton fixtures are really tough. If you've got him, he's fine to keep because he will play. And he's only 4.3 million, so he's not going to take away from your budget. But he's not worth buying now. If you want to buy some bench fodder, then I suggest you get a cheaper defender. And then the least important defenders that are in the system, we have Van der Berg at 4.1, bench fodder. Greaves is bench fodder. Burn is very lowly owned now. He's in the system because he used to be much higher owned. He's lowly owned now. I don't think it's worth getting him. There's a chance they get a couple of clean sheets, Newcastle, the next few games. But I don't think he's worth bringing in at all. And then Wout Faes, again, bench fodder 4.1. Harwood Bellis, 4.1 bench fodder. Van de Ven used to be popular. Don't buy him. He's injured. He may be back for the Southampton game. But 4.5 million, you're better off getting a one of the 4.1 million keepers, or even Greece for 4 million, and spending the extra money elsewhere. Regarding midfielders, we're still in the position where Salah, Palmer, Saka, if you can buy these three, all three of them are good, they're worth having. The most important one is Salah. He's got double-digit returns, I think, in 10 of his 14 games so far this season. He's ridiculous. Part of that is to do with they've changed the bonus system this year, so it's a lot easier for him to get points because of the way he plays. So you're probably going to struggle if you don't have Salah. It's going to be very difficult to keep getting green arrows. You don't have to take lots of hits to get these three in, and you don't have to have these three in. But the model going forward for most managers is to have these three. And Bremo's massively dropping in popularity. He's just not, I think he's had one shot now in the last 5 games. He's 7.7 million. That money could be used elsewhere. I've already sold him. I'd be tempted to sell him if I had him, I guess, because I could do something out of the money. If you've got him, that's fine. He is on penalties as far as we know, still on penalties. But I'd say don't buy him. You don't have to move him on, but you could probably do with the money elsewhere. And then Rodgers, nice to see him score last night. He's only 5.3 million, which is why he's so popular. If he was the same price as Bremo, maybe nobody would have him, or hardly anyone would have him. But because he's cheap and he seems to play every game week, he's a nice enabler where you can spend money elsewhere. So 2.4 million difference between Rodgers and Mbremo's crazy. I'd rather have Rodgers and 2.4 than Mbremo. And then Fernandes, 8.5. He is a good player. Reasonable chance of getting points in any game. The next 4 games, he shouldn't be frightened of any of those. So he's all right, but he is quite expensive. But he's a good player. If you had 5 midfielders or even 4 that are on this page, then you shouldn't get hurt too much unless you don't have Salah. And then the second page in midfielders, Smith Rowe dropping in popularity. Apart from the Southampton game, there's no good games coming up in the immediate future. Johnson, see, if I had Johnson, he's so not popular at the moment, or unpopular, I guess you could say. I would sell him, I'd release the cash. I'd either upgrade him to somebody else or just get someone very cheap like Dibbling, we'll get to in a minute, and spend the money elsewhere. So Gordon is gaining popularity and he has some nice fixtures coming up. Reasonable chance of some good returns there. 7.2 million though. So he's all right to have, but if you don't have him and he does well, he's not going to hurt you. Semenyo's not going to hurt you, but he is quite a good player and he's only 5.7. So Johnson to Semenyo you could do to release $1 million to spend elsewhere. I probably wouldn't do that move, but it's all right. If you've got Semenyo, absolutely fine to have him though. Then Bowen's gaining a bit in popularity. He's got some nice fixtures coming up. The big problem with Bowen though is he plays for West Ham and they're really struggling at the moment. But Bowen does tend to get 5, 6, 7 points quite regularly. He's not had a big haul yet, I think, this season. And some games he'll just get 2. And then Luis Diaz, a good player, but a minute's risk, very lowly owned now. It's not worth buying him. If you've got him, he's fine to keep if you want to. Playing Everton next game, not worth buying. And then the least important midfielders, McNeil, he's massively dropped in popularity. He did get some points last night, but Everton's next 4 fixtures are very difficult. It's hardly worth selling him for the money, but you could if you wanted to. But he does take up a midfield position. The midfielders are where the points are. So if you want to sell him to release the position, that makes sense. Selling him for the money, you don't make a lot. And he is worth the 5.5 generally, but he'll often be on your bench. Son is a very good player, but he's very lowly owned. And at 9.9, he's absolutely not going to hurt your rank at the moment. So if you've got him, he's fine to have. Personally, I wouldn't be going there to buy him, but he is a good player. He can get some points. But the way I would play is try and get the popular players. Garnacho's not getting played enough. He is a good player, but he's not playing. He's not good for FPL at the moment. So I'd say absolutely don't buy Garnacho. If you've got him, he's all right to have, but don't buy him. Don't buy Winks. I think he's still flagged. Dibbling, he's bench fodder. Absolutely brilliant player, but he plays for Southampton. He will get some decent points during the season, but he'll often sit on your bench. For the forwards, Kuna is still the most important forward to have, in as much as if he does well in the next 3 game weeks, he's probably going to hurt your rank quite a bit if you don't have him. But he's now 7.1, so you don't have to get him, and you may rather spend the money in midfield, but just be aware he could hurt you if you don't have him. Jackson, he was rested last night, but he's a good player. Some good fixtures coming up. João Pedro's nice and cheap at 5.8 million, and he has some nice fixtures coming up. And he's still quite popular, so if he does well and you don't have him, he's going to hurt you. And those three, I just realised, they happen to be the three strikers that I have at the moment. So Watkins is a good player. We said that last week, and I was queried about that in one of the comments. And then he got 12 points last night. At home to Southampton next game week, then he's got Forest. Personally, I wouldn't be bringing him in. I'm just highlighting he's a good player. If you've got him, he's fine to have. If he does well and you don't have him, he's not especially going to hurt your rank. And then Wood down at 6.6. He is the penalty taker, but the upcoming fixtures aren't great. I sold him a week or two ago. I think it was last week I sold him, actually. I absolutely wouldn't be bringing him in just now. If you've got him, he's all right to have, but he's also okay to move on. So Haaland's all the way down to the sixth most important forward now. He is a good player. I suspect he is going to get points in the next several games, but he's now so lowly owned, he's not going to hurt your rank too much if he does well. And in any case, that money can be better spent in midfield. Isak is a good player. It might be next week Isak and Haaland have swapped places. He's a good player. He played last night, so he is fit. He's got some nice fixtures coming up. You're probably better off getting Isak than Watkins if you're going to buy one of them, and definitely Isak before Haaland at the moment. But if you've got Kuna, Jackson, João Pedro, I wouldn't swap any of those for Isak. But Isak's growing in popularity. He is a good player. Regarding the other forwards, Welbeck's dropping in popularity. 5.9 million. It is nice and cheap. The upcoming fixtures are nice. If you've got him, he's absolutely fine to keep. Probably not worth selling for any of the other forwards at the moment. He's all right, but if he does well, he's not going to hurt you. Vardy, I love Vardy. I think he's great. He's very funny to watch. But he's now so lowly owned, he's not going to hurt you if he does well. Havertz, even lower owned than Vardy. He's a good player, but he's not going to get probably anywhere near the points that someone like Saka's going to get. And at 7.9 million, you're better off spending that in midfield. Solanke, again, he's a good player, not worth having. I'd be tempted to move him on for short and release the cash. Raul Jimenez, he is cheap at least. And if you've got other things to deal with, it's fine to have Raul Jimenez. If you've got nothing else to do and you've got him, he's probably worth swapping out. And then any 4.5 million forward who's not going to play, that only ever going to sit on your bench, that would be the last one to have. So the way this series works, if I go to the previous page, if you had these three forwards, then you're pretty secure and you're not going to lose rank from what the forwards do probably. If I go back to the midfielders, these are the midfielders that are going to hurt your rank if they do well and you don't have them. When we get to these midfielders, if they do well and you don't have them, they're not really going to hurt your rank so much. So the reason for just trying to explain that was, if you want to gradually go up the ranks with the little green arrows, you want to be trying to pick the popular players that are likely to do well, which are the early ones. If you want to have some fun, then you can go for a green player that's on a lower page, and if they do well, you could well shoot up the ranks, but that is a more risky way to play. So suggested benching order now. For the keepers in the system, the first keeper you see that you've got, I suggest is the one you go on the bench, which means the other keeper is the one you're playing. So if you've got any 4 million keeper that's not even playing, they're on your bench. Then I'm suggesting Pickford. They are at home, but it is Liverpool. Then Sells, Flecken, Henderson, Fabianski, Sanchez, Martinez, and then Raya. Regarding the other players, the first player you see that you've got, I suggest, goes in position 3 on your bench, the next one position 2, and the last one position 1. So any 4.5 million forward that's not even playing, they're on your bench. Van der Ven's injured. Then Harwood, Bellis, Faz, Greaves, Byrne, Mikalenko, Dibbling, Winks, Vanderberg, McNeil, Aina, Lewis, Mazraoui, Konza, Aït-Nouri, Smith Rowe, Garnacho, Mbeumo, Pedro Porro, Raul Jimenez. And then it would be Welbeck, Vardy, Wood, Luis Diaz, Semenyo, Gordon, Johnson, Gvardiol, Saliba, Virgil van Dijk, Trent, Gabriel, Bowen, Kuna, Solanke, Havertz, Isak, João Pedro, Rogers, Jackson, and Son. Now you may be looking at this and thinking, would I really suggest you should say play Bowen over Gabriel? But Gabriel's the first defender on here, which means he is going to play. So if you've got Gabriel, he will play, as will Trent, as will Virgil van Dijk. So I'm saying if you've got those three and Saliba and you've got Bowen, I'd prioritise playing Bowen over Saliba. Hopefully that makes sense. And yeah, if you blindly follow these instructions, then I think you'll do all right. But if you want to do your own thing, or if you disagree with me, that is absolutely fine. And if you're going to one of the football matches, you probably want to pick players that are going to be in the match, because again, that would be more fun. So regarding the captaincy, I think Salah is going to be the safest person to captain. If you've got him, I think it's worth going there. But there are other options. Palmer's okay, Saka's okay, Haaland, I'm going to say he's okay to captain, but you probably haven't got him now, as is Watkins, as is Fernandes. Any of these are fine to captain, any of these are fine to vice captain, but I think Salah's probably the safest one. Regarding the background picture, you could be forgiven for thinking this is a photograph of two giraffes, but it's actually based on a sketch. So I work with veterinary surgeons, and a few years ago somebody just scribbled on a post-it note a picture of a giraffe. I'll show you that in a minute. So I thought, I know what should I do for a background picture? I'll base it on the giraffe and add in a football. So that's the original post-it note that it was based on. And then from that, we get this picture. There we go. Now, if any of you fancy sending in a sketch, you can DM me on X and I might use it for a background image. You just need to do a simple picture like I just showed you, and I'll try and make it look a bit nicer for the background image. Or if you got any kids that have drawn something, I'll see if I can do something with that. But back to the football. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it made some sense. It was nice and simple. I do read your comments. I tend to reply to them all. So I hope you have fun in Game Week 15. Thanks. Bye.